Hi, in this video we'll talk about the basic wireless networking features on your iPad. Personally, in my opinion, the wireless abilities of the iPad are one of its greatest features. The ability to have a really full-featured computer that can access the internet and all the information out there, including my mail and whatever, to have that in my hand, that's something that's really useful to me. Let me show you some options for the wireless networking. I'm going to open up the Settings app because the Settings app is where all the information about our wireless networking lives. Now, I'm in the General Settings area right now. If I scroll up, you'll notice that there is an area right here labeled Network. And then under Network there are two options, VPN and Wi-Fi. The VPN is not something that we're going to talk about right now, but just so you know, VPN is a system that allows you to create a secure connection into something like the university system. Wi-Fi, however, is the term used to refer to just the basic networking, the wireless networking that the iPad has. If you tap on the Wi-Fi option, then you're brought into a screen with several options. Now, because this is such a useful screen, Apple has made it actually easy to get to. You'll notice that in the settings area on the left, there is a Wi-Fi option. Tapping that by itself actually brings you into this area. And one thing you can do here is just turn off the wireless network entirely using the option at the top. And you might want to do that sometimes, I guess, but more likely than not, your job is going to be choosing what wireless network you're on. You'll notice that when we're here at Grand Valley, we have a number of different options, and maybe you found that these options are a little bit confusing. As faculty and staff, the option that you should choose is the faculty and staff option. By tapping on it, I'm not going to do that right now, but by tapping on it, you actually ask to join that network. And the first time you do it, it's going to probably ask you for some information like your Grand Valley username and password, because we have password secured networks here. You'll notice the little lock next to the GV faculty staff. That's actually an indication that it's a secure network that you need to have a password to get onto. You can see that there's at least 2 or 3 here that do not have security. When you're at a coffee shop, when you're at a restaurant, those kinds of public networks are not going to be secured probably, which means they will not have a lock by them. You'll also notice there's a little sort of radiating wave signal. That's an indication of how strong that network signal is. If you're a long ways away from where the wireless access point, they call it, a long ways away from where that is, the signal is going to be weaker and the connection is not going to be as strong. It's going to be harder to transfer information. It's going to be slower over the network. But here on campus, most places we've got really good strong signals. You'll also notice that on your iPad at the top of the screen in the bar at the top, it always gives you an indication of how strong the network signal is for the one that you're on. So you can always see that information and know that if you're having trouble with your wireless network. The iPad is pretty good about selecting the correct network to be on. If you've been on a network before, the iPad is going to remember that and is going to join ones that you've already been part of. Notice there's an option at the bottom of the screen for that. Sometimes, weird things happen. You might need to come in here and actually manually choose which network to connect to, but all you have to do is tap on it. The other thing I want to show you is that there are going to be situations where you're going to need to turn off your iPad's wireless networking, namely when you're on an airplane. The FAA still thinks that it's dangerous to have consumer electronics broadcasting signals, even though on some airplanes there are pilots in the cockpit using iPads. But to turn that off, Apple has given you a very easy option. You'll notice that in the settings, the column of settings options, at the very top there's airplane mode. If I were to turn that on, what would happen is all the different wireless signals coming from my iPad would actually turn off. That includes my Wi-Fi networking, as well as, for example, the Bluetooth that would be connected to my keyboard if I was using that. This is a really handy way to turn off all those signals at one time. But when you do have airplane mode turned on, just in case you forget, a little airplane shows up at the top of your screen. So that's the basics of turning on and turning off your iPad's wireless networking.